This stage of the project is the production stage. This is, in a real AAA game development project, the stage that takes the longest. And if you wanted to boil it down to a question, it really is, what exactly is this project? Which at the beginning of the production stage, you need to have that firmly decided upon, and then you move forward on it. So this week you will finalize the important elements of your game's design and write down the first draft of your game design document, or GDD. Production. This stage of game development asks and answers the question, what exactly is this project? By the end of the first week of this stage, each team needs to drop early prototype ideas that didn't pan out and refine the prototype ideas that are most feasible. To that end, each team will create a game design document, or GDD. The GDD serves as a reference document that everyone will refer to, as well as a standards document that everyone will adhere to. More so than management, the studio director will use the GDD to make sure the project stays on track in terms of things like unique gameplay, project scope, timeline to completion, and budget. Post your first version of this GDD draft in D2L by Sunday evening. If you have 2 or more people, make sure every team member has a clear understanding of the project. Have everyone who spent time writing the document turn in a copy. So your GDD will expand on the proposal document as follows. You'll notice that most of these are the same that you had before, but the things in the middle here, you're going to be specific about the game objects that are in the game mechanics, the actions the players can take, the player limitations, numeric elements, like if health is something, that there's a minimum of 0 and a maximum of 10 or 20 or 100, that's what you would say. If there's something like a moment of damage associated with a certain object, then like what's the minimum and maximum for that? Is there some sort of point system? Anything like that numerically, you just do your best to come up with a guess of what you think that would work out as. Then you're going to need text for the instructions, dialogue, etc. Just if you don't have the complete version, just put in some rudimentary placeholder text, and over the later weeks fill it out, especially if you have a narrative-based game. And then you have the the other files that you have been working on before for different art files and audio files. I would say this is a flexible document, meaning that you are to extend it, put everything else that you deem necessary for your project in this document. If this were a longer project, you would want someone hired 3 months into the project to be able to use the GDD to get up to speed quickly. This document will evolve over time, but the main idea this week is to start with a structured framework. Let your instructor know what you're working on each week. What you turn in as homework will depend on what your game is and how many people you have on your team. It could be writing custom documentation, programming, artwork, audio, or some kind of level design. Please upload whatever you work on to D2L assignments. If you work on something which you do not want to use, please upload that too so your instructor knows what's going on. Be sure to make backups like version 1, 2, 3, and save often. 2 things come to mind. Don't go down a rabbit hole. Now this mainly applies to programmers working on something overly complicated or anything that would require more than 5 weeks of development time. It could also apply to background or character artwork, which has a large palette of colors and lots of details. By the end of the course, you want your game to be as complete as possible, and that might be hard to do if you get caught up in the details pertaining to just one portion of it. You can always make refinements after the course is over. 2, you are expected to turn in something each week. If you have created all the art you need, make refined versions using more colors, shadows, highlights, outlining, or 3D accents. If you have created all the sound files that you need, consider making your songs longer, more varied, and less repetitive. Another option would be to create different sets of audio effects that go together, allowing the team to vote on which one of them to use in the final version of the game. With audio, you can use the program Audacity to balance levels, shorten the beginning and the ending of sounds, and then you could add reverb as well. So let's see here. Here's a game design document which was associated with this the Precision Platformer. I actually will I wanted to show another level of this game which I've modified to make it a little easier. There's ways to set up ramps where even though there's no jumping, you can with their game mechanic actually go up in altitude, but it really requires a lot of practice with the game. And this right here allows you to go through this area, which is this kind of laser blue light bridge. Anyway, this is something which we'll take a look at their GDD. So, game design document. This is a good example. In this single-player game, the player controls a battery that is trying to get back to its charging station. Throughout each level, the battery will be able to collect charges, which will help change both the battery's movement options and the battery's environment. This will help the battery to return to the charger within each level. Player motivation. The player's motivation is mastery. Here, the more charges the player collects throughout the level and the faster the player completes the level, the higher the player's score will be. Unique selling proposition. The game is a puzzle platformer meets momentum-based movement. Here, the player will need to use the momentum of the battery to gain things. I'm not sure what they meant. Can gain down things like ramps in order to make jumps, as the battery can't jump on its own. The player will also need to figure out what things in the environment they can use their charges on in order to help them complete the level. Target market is going to be 10 to 18 years old, and we expect fans of platformers and puzzle games to be fans of this game. Genre and ESRB rating. The game would be sold on Windows PC and have an ESRB rating of E. I guess it's an action platformer is the genre. So the premise is the battery, has fallen away from its charger and needs to get back as soon as possible. The only character in the game is the player-controlled battery. And so you're seeing the battery edge on. There's a sci-fi style and theme. Here's the game object list, the game mechanics about building up momentum, going downward on slopes, and then you're going to lose momentum on upward slopes. And then numeric elements, the player will earn score the faster they complete the level. And then there's some text for instructions. Within the first level, the players introduce the mechanics within the game, and further on icons will be showed to convey the same information. As in the first time a charge interactable is shown, the player is the player is told what to do through the text, so when the player sees the icon further into the game, they know what it does. The GUI will show the player's score within the level and the number of charges the player has. There's an art design list for all the different pieces of artwork, and then the different audio sounds, and then the different scenes. This is definitely a hard game. Even level 2 is pretty tough. So anyway, that is really a good example of a GDD.